to show you just some tips and tricks for administering your Eduphoria assessment online. I have created an assessment in here, and I'm especially going to show you a couple of tips and tricks you might not know to make sure that your experience with students that need to have text-to-speech and an online test works correctly. The first thing that I want to show you is whenever I'm in here in my test, there's your general tab and then your questions tab, and there's a new button up here that they've added at the top, which is show test summary. So instead of having to see it just in a double pane here, if you click this button under the questions tab, you can see your questions full screen across there, and I know that that is helpful. So then if I've added my questions, I know my test, and I just want to check and see what's it going to sound like with speech to text. I can click on my administration tab, collection, and then right down here there's this button that looks like a magnifying glass, and if I hover over it, it says preview online testing. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to let me preview the test and what it would look like for students if they were taking this test online. The good thing about it is I can check my text to speech. So I'm going to click right over here.
The Smith siblings had of a pie left. If each of the 5 siblings receive the same.
So if you noticed, it said the Smith siblings had of a pie left, and it skipped over my fraction. The reason it's skipping over that fraction is because it's an image. So I'm going to close this out because I need to fix that question. It cannot read it that way. And I'm going to open up my question. I'm going to come in here, and I notice it's doing that because it's an image. So when I hover over it, I can see that it's an image. So I'm going to double click, and I get a new box. And then right here, I can type in my alternative text of what I want it to read and say. So since this is a math problem, I want it to read it as 1/2 because that's the way that you have to read those fractions in math problems. So I'm going to click OK. Then I notice, look, each of these are also fractions. So I'm going to click on each one of those and fix each one of those. Again, I'm just double clicking on it and then clicking save. Then I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to click save. I'm going to go back to administration just to make sure, collection, and I'm going to click down here, preview the test, and now let's see if it reads it correctly.
The Smith siblings had 1/2 of a pie left. If each of the 5 siblings received the same amount of pie, how much did each receive? 1/10, 1/5, 1/4. 1/3.
And so now I know that that's correct, but I also know that I pulled in some questions from some other things as well. So I'm going to close that and I'm going to go back and I'm just going to show you it would be pretty much the same. If it is a reading and it says resource over here, so resource versus up here where it's selected response, if it's a resource, it will not let you click in there to change anything of reading a resource because they're all set on the reading passages that it will not read those things. But if I go down here, this happens to be the question that goes with that passage. And if you notice, that is a picture. So I can move this out of the way so I see what it says. Maybe you have seen too many colorless statues or paintings that make no sense. Period. Okay. And so now that is going to work whenever they get to that question. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to show you one more example. So this happens to be a social studies example. And if you'll notice, each one of these, that is all one image. So I'm going to show you another tip or trick here. So I'm going to double click on that, move it out of my way so I can see what the words say again. So I want it to read cotton gin invented. I misspelled that. But I want it to pause because it's going to the next box. I could either put a comma if I just want it to be a slight pause and a space, or I can put a period and a space, and then that way it will pause after each one of those instead of it reading it all as one sentence. So I missed that. Double click again. Go to the end. So I guess I would say question mark, and then abolitionist movement grew. And I'm going to click OK. And then if I want to, again, go back and check what these say, I can go back up here to administration. I can go to collection. I can go to preview. And I'm specifically going to go to question number 3 so that you can hear it speak. Oh, right there.
Cotton gin invented. Cotton production increased. Question mark. Abolitionist movement grew. Which of the following best completes the diagram?
So that will tell you that it has gone and it has fixed that. Again, you can see each one of these, so I could go here and I could check this one too.
Read this sentence from paragraph 1 in the Amazing Museum. Maybe you have seen too many colorless statues or paintings that make no sense. In the sentence above, it is helpful.
Okay. So just so you can preview and check, and just again, if it's an image, you'll want to make sure. The only other things that you need to make sure of whenever you're doing an online test is that this online test is enabled. All of our students use the same URL to log into a test, and everyone, their username is their ID number, and the password for every student is RISD Rockets. Once you've made this test active, just like any other test that's online, so I'm going to go make my test active. It will now show up in the test available tab right here. So now I see my sample test for training right here. I'm going to click Online Test Proctoring, and then I'm going to go up to the top and choose Online Test Proctoring. And then I can open my class period, and I can select all of my students, and then I can start the test right up here in the right-hand corner. So once I hit Start, it'll show that it's available for students. This is also where I can click on text-to-speech for students. I can turn it on after I've made it available. I can turn it on before I've made it available. Either one of those ways work. Whenever a student starts a test, it'll show it started. When they've submitted it, it will show submitted over here. This I can force a student's test to be submitted if they say they've submitted it, but it's still not showing. Once they've submitted it, if they say I hit submit on accident, it will show up over here and you can reopen the test. That's pretty much it. The URL is right here, but it's also already posted in Schoology for all the students. But you can copy the student login URL right there, and it's the same for every one of the tests. When your students, you want them to be done and not be able to see the test anymore, you can come and stop the test, or it will also disappear if you put an end date for the test. That is all.